Okay, so picture this, a civilization of master builders and expert sailors, a people who literally carved an army of giants out of stone and left behind thousands of towers, but not a single written word, not one. Today, we're going to journey to a Mediterranean island to try and unravel this incredible 3,000-year-old mystery.
7,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. What is it? Is it an army? A hoard of treasure? Nope. It's the number of ancient stone towers all crammed onto one single island. Wild, right?
And that right there is the central mystery we're diving into. What kind of civilization builds over 7,000 of these things and then just vanishes without leaving a single written clue? We're talking about the Nuragic people of ancient Sardinia. I mean, they were a total Bronze Age powerhouse. But for all their huge achievements, their story is still this massive puzzle that we're only just now starting to piece together.
All right, so where do we even start with a mystery this big? Well, we have to begin with their most famous legacy, those thousands of incredible stone towers. These things, they're really the first key to unlocking who the Nuragic people were.
So this is a Nuraghe. And let me tell you, these things are absolute engineering marvels. They were built with these massive stones, and get this, with no mortar at all to hold them together. They are literally everywhere on the island. With over 7,000 of them, we're talking about one tower for roughly every 3 square kilometers. I mean, that is a density you just won't find anywhere else in the ancient world. It's incredible. Okay, so the big question is, what were they actually for? For a long time, people guessed all sorts of things. Military fortresses, religious temples, maybe even tombs for chiefs. But the modern thinking, it points to something way more complex and honestly more interesting. They probably weren't just simple castles. Think of them more as the fortified hearts of entire communities. You know, defensible homesteads that had everything, barns, silos, the real center of social and economic life.
So, that leads us to the people themselves. Who were these master builders? Well, they were so much more than just incredible stonemasons. These were masters of metal and the sea. We're talking about highly skilled artisans and really daring sailors who made a huge mark all across the Bronze Age Mediterranean.
And their civilization wasn't just a flash in the pan. It thrived for over 1,500 years. It all kicks off around 1800 BC. They hit this real golden age in the middle of the Bronze Age, and then they adapt and evolve right on through the Iron Age. But here's a super important clue. See that date? Around 1200 BC? That's when they stop building new Nuraghes. That tells us something big was changing in their world.
You see, Sardinia was basically a metallurgist's dream come true, just packed with copper and lead. So naturally, the Nuragic people became masters of metal. They made these stunning bronze swords, daggers, tools, you name it. But there was a catch, a big one. To make bronze, you need tin, and Sardinia had zero. So what do? Well, it forced them to become expert traders, sailing all over the Mediterranean to bring in the tin they needed and shipping out their own amazing goods as far as Greece and even the Iberian Peninsula. And this is where the story gets even more compelling. It turns out their skills on the sea weren't just for peaceful trade. Over in ancient Egypt, there are these records that talk about a mysterious and pretty scary group of seafaring raiders called the Sherdin. And you guessed it, a lot of clues point right back to Sardinia as their home base.
Honestly, the connection is pretty hard to ignore. The famous archaeologist Vere Gordon Childe even said it himself. The resemblance between the little warrior statues they find in Sardinia and the pictures of the Sherdin on Egyptian monuments is just uncanny. I mean, the horned helmets, the round shields, the long swords, it's all there. It really points to the idea that these Sardinians weren't just known as traders, but maybe as some of the most feared warriors and mercenaries of their time.
But, you know, their world wasn't all about war and trade, not by a long shot. So let's shift gears a bit and look at their spiritual life and their absolutely incredible art. We're going to find holy wells, miniature masterpieces, and, believe it or not, giants.
So it seems the Nuragic people had this deep spiritual reverence for water, and they built these absolutely stunning holy wells as sacred sites. These places are architectural marvels, with these perfect stone vaults and grand staircases leading down to the springs. Now, the most famous one, Santa Cristina, is just wow. It is built with such incredible precision that only once every 18.5 years, the light of the full moon shines perfectly down the staircase and lights up the sacred water at the bottom. I mean, think about that level of planning.
They also left behind thousands of these beautiful little bronze statues, called bronzetti.
And they're like a perfect little window into their world. Seriously, they show us everything. Chiefs, warriors with those horned helmets, wrestlers, even musicians. They give us this really intimate look at their society. And the fact that we found them in Etruscan tombs all the way over in mainland Italy, that just proves how far their influence and their trade networks really reached.
And for decades, archaeologists thought this miniature art was kind of their thing. You know, it was their signature style. Delicate, intricate, personal. But then, in 1974, a local farmer was just plowing his field and he stumbled onto some stone fragments. Fragments of something that would completely rewrite everything we thought we knew about Nuragic art and culture.
What he found was an army of stone giants. They're called the Giants of Monte Prama. We're talking about dozens of these massive sandstone statues, archers, boxers, warriors, some of them standing up to 2.5 meters tall. And get this, these are the oldest human-sized statues ever discovered in Europe. They're even older than the famous Kuroi statues from ancient Greece. This discovery was a total game changer. It proved the Nuragic people could work on both a tiny, miniature scale and a truly colossal one.
And yet, for all of this, massive towers, incredible metalwork, an army of giant statues, we keep coming back to that same central mystery. They left behind no written history of their own. Nothing.
And that's why trying to understand the Nuragic people is so much like a detective story. Archaeology gives us all the physical evidence, the pottery, the tools, the buildings. It's the what and how. Then you have texts from the Greeks and Romans, written way later, that give us some names and myths, but you have to take those with a grain of salt because they're often biased. And while there are these tantalizing little hints of a written script from the very, very end of their civilization, it's just not enough. It's not enough for us to hear their stories in their own words.
But today, there's a new tool in the toolbox. A whole new kind of archaeology is starting to give a voice to this silent past. We're now using genetics, DNA, to answer questions that stone and pottery just can't.
And genetic analyses of Nuragic remains has revealed something absolutely astounding. And it's mostly about what isn't in their DNA. So it turns out they were overwhelmingly descended from the very first Neolithic farmers who settled on the island thousands of years earlier. But, and this is a huge but, unlike most of mainland Europe during the Bronze Age, they have almost zero ancestry from the steppe peoples who migrated in from the east. Genetically, they were in a league of their own.
So what does this all mean? Well, this DNA evidence answers a massive question for us. The Nuragic civilization wasn't imported from somewhere else. They weren't invaders who showed up in the Bronze Age. No, this was a culture that was born and raised right there on Sardinia. It was a truly indigenous culture that evolved, developing its own unique traditions over thousands of years. The towers, the bronzes, the giants, it was all uniquely Sardinian.
So, from 7,000 silent towers to a one-of-a-kind genetic signature, the incredible story of the Nuragic people is finally starting to be told. Modern science is at last giving a voice to these ancient builders, and it's revealing a culture that was so much more complex and fascinating than we ever imagined. And really, it just makes you wonder, what other secrets are still buried, waiting to be found right under the soil of Sardinia?